Hello, my name is Sean Sperry and I am with IBM Systems Software Group. In this short video we're going to talk about FlashCopy Manager for Unix 4.1.1 and the new prerequisite checker that comes with FlashCopy Manager for Unix. And specifically we're going to do a demonstration for DB2 on how it works with DB2. So let's first talk a little bit about prerequisites. The prerequisites for FlashCopy Manager for Unix are very specific because of the type of snapshot backup that we're doing and the hardware that we're working with. It's very important that the database be laid out in a specific way that doesn't interfere with the snapshots being taken. So that being said, there is an all requirements document that gives you complete details on FlashCopy Manager and what the requirements are for operating system configuration, applications, application configuration including volume group layout, redundancy, storage devices, etc. There is also a very good pre-install checklist that you can go through when you're planning to use FlashCopy Manager, and it will give you a detailed list of prerequisites that you can check to make sure that your system conforms to the necessary requirements and it is laid out in such a way that it will work well with FlashCopy Manager. Now, prior to version 4.1.1, there was no prerequisite checker, so you really had to go through that entire list and check each one by hand. But with version 4.1.1, our development team introduced a prerequisite checker. And this prerequisite checker does a good job of going through some of the major configuration requirements for installing FlashCopy Manager with DB2, Oracle, and SAP on Oracle, and making sure that your system will meet the prerequisites so that you can run cloning, FlashCopy Manager, snapshots, and offloaded backups. This is just some facts about the prerequisite checker at version 4.1.1. It's delivered as a separate downloadable package, so you don't necessarily need to install the whole product to get the prerequisite checker. You can run the prerequisite checker in advance of installing the product. And as I mentioned in the previous slide, it automates some of the checks for operating systems, database instances, volume group layouts, etc. on Linux and AIX. You can install the prerequisite checker package in graphical or console mode. And this next bullet is really important. The prerequisite checker does not make any changes to your underlying system or to your databases. It is really an inspection-only tool that goes out there and looks at the configuration and reports back whether you meet the prerequisites. So if you don't meet the prerequisites, you will need to go out there and use the tools of your appropriate database to make any changes that you need to make. Now, because the tool is very conservative, we do require that the databases that you're using be running or activated. So in the case of Oracle, that's going to mean the database is mounted. In the case of DB2, the database is going to need to be activated. And the command line is pretty simple. It's just a shell script that calls some underlying binaries to run the prerequisite checker and produces a report. I've listed some references here to the documentation page, but if you just go to the FlashCopy Manager 4.1.1 manual, you'll see information about how to run it. And it's very straightforward. I'll show you in the demo coming up. So what we're going to do is do a quick demo of the prerequisite checker so you can see what it looks like. And we're going to use a DB2 database and Linux to do the install and to actually run the prerequisite checker and see the report and see the output. So let's do that now. Okay, so our demo is going to be one on Red Hat 6 system that we have here, and we are running DB2 10.5. I have a couple shells up here. One is running as the instance owner, which is DB2 inst1, and one we're going to use to run the prerequisite checker, which is root. So what I'll do is just show you that this is my instance owner, and I'll do a db2 list database directory just so you can see the databases here. And remember, the database needs to be active in order to run the prerequisite checker. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and activate the database so that it can be ready for the prerequisite checker to complete. And that is the db2 activate database command. Now, I went ahead and ran the extraction of the package that I downloaded from Passport Advantage. This is the prerequisite checker package for FlashCopy Manager 4.1.1. And what I'll do is it extracted everything into this FCM underscore prep DVD directory. And as you can see, there's an AIX version and a Linux version here. So since we're running on Red Hat, I'm going to go ahead and run the Linux version. And you can see here that there's a binary installer for the prerequisite checker. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and run that binary installer. And when I do that, that's going to run as an X window program. I'll go ahead and click OK. There's really not a lot to choose here other than the fact that it's just going to extract the package. So I'll go ahead and run the installation. Click Next, accept the license agreements, accept the default installation directory, and then go ahead and run the install and let the package install on the system. And what that's going to do is it's going to lay down the script that is going to run the prerequisite checker for FlashCopy Manager and DB2. So that completed, and now what I'll do is as root, I'll go ahead and go to the directory where that was installed, and we'll take a look at running the prerequisite checker. So the installation directory is this Optively TSM FCM prereq checker on Linux, and the prerequisite checker itself is this FCM prereq checker.sh. So it calls a script, and it also calls some binaries to actually do the prereq check. I'll go ahead and run it with no parameters, just so you can see the syntax. And it helps to make the window a little wider because the output for the prereq checker is kind of wide. And you can see here that basically it's just looking for the name of the database instance user, the IP and port of the storage, and here you see they're nice enough to give you some default ports for the IBM storage outputs, and then a couple optional parameters. My storage happens to be a NetApp called N series, so I'll just make sure that I can get there, which I can. And then I'll just go ahead and run the prerequisite checker, and we'll take a look at the output to see what it looks like. So I will do a prerequisite checker -s And my DB2 instance owner is db2inst1. My storage address is n-series, and my port is 443, since it is a NetApp. And it helps to get the syntax right. That is a -u, excuse me. So we'll go ahead and run that one more time. And basically the output of the prerequisite will just be directed to the screen and thrown into a file in the log directory. And what the prerequisite checker is doing now is looking at the database and looking at the setup in the operating system, and basically just determining whether the system meets the prerequisites or not. So we see here some of the things that it is checking is the operating system version. I happen to be running Red Hat version 6, so that's passing. 64-bit, I have 82 gig of temp space. I have a valid port that is available. I'm running 64-bit operating system. I am running the LVM2 package and running LVM Logical Volume Manager 2 volumes. That is a prerequisite for FlashCopy Manager for Linux, but not necessarily the default on many Linux systems. So it's checking that. Multipath driver software is installed. It's checking the versions of DB2. And one of the important things that it is checking is the layout of the volume groups that are being used by FlashCopy Manager or by the database, and which are to be used in FlashCopy Manager. And that's this check here, FCM, that is volume group layout check supported. So as you can see here, my system passed. And then finally, there's just an overall result here that shows that the prerequisite did pass. And then finally, there's a little note here that shows where you can find the logs if you want to find the results or get more details if your system didn't pass. And then some information about the prerequisite checklist, which we talked about a bit earlier. So that's an example of running the prerequisite check on DB2. As I mentioned, it also runs on Oracle and SAP running in an Oracle environment. So that's all for this video. I hope you found it useful, and I look forward to seeing you sometime in the future.